All right, so if you haven't done so, you got to check out Jubilee Media. It's probably one of the first videos that you'll see, but if this is later on, yeah, I believe it's one progressive versus 20 conservative, or one independent versus 20 conservatives, and his name is Mehdi Hassan. And this guy is, I believe, a naturalized American citizen, and he just eviscerates. He eviscerates the entire crowd one by one. And while many people are looking at that and it's going viral, got over like 4.5 million. Or that particular video is going to do it's going to do a lot of numbers. Typically, Jubilee Media, this is what they do. They take somebody with an opposing view and match them up with a bunch of people who have opposing views. But there was some takeaways from what I got. Number one, that Mehdi Hassan, that guy this is my first time discovering him, and I'm like, wow, this dude's phenomenal. I believe he even wrote a book about debating, teaching you how to debate. So he's a professional at this. He's no joke. He's literally no joke. And many people politically, they're like, man, they can't believe that there's so many people who are radicalized like the way that some of these conservatives are. And I believe many people don't understand the state that we're in, like the where we are as a people, especially in America, how people look at America. I believe a lot of those people that were going up there speaking and talking, they felt like America's problems are tantamount to the entire world, right? They're just living in this bubble, and they think that America is the center of the universe. Like, everybody comes to America, and I believe it comes from the emergence of the 4chans, the Reddits, these deep Reddit threads that become echo chambers. Then you see remember back in the day, like I would say like 8 years ago, you had the Pepe the Frog memes. And this whole thing online where you had the Black Lives Matter movement, you had a counter to that, right? And what you had were, I believe, these working class white people who felt like they had genuine grievances. Maybe they felt like, you know what? I'm not making as much money as I thought I would. I'm not, like, they bought into this American dream that if they went to college, if they got a career, they were going to be able to work there for 30 years or 40 years, get a good pension, get a good check, and be able to retire and live their life like the American dream. And that was not the case. That was not the case, because they're looking at their fathers, they're looking at their moms, and they're like, man, I don't have the money, I don't have the wealth. So what is this privilege that these people talk about? What are all these things that these people talk about? And I honestly believe that frustration that many working class white Americans have, this is something that, I'm sorry, I gotta see. This is something that, damn. just being nosy. You know, they're feeling like they are the ones who are basically disadvantaged, and they're seeing all of these things happening with other groups, and they're feeling left out. So they run to these little online groups, these fringe groups, and this becomes an echo chamber. This becomes a bubble that they can all kind of say, hey, you know what? I'm not doing so well in life. I'm not doing great. You know, I thought I was going to go to college and I was going to have this career, and I never got this career. And you may be seeing things like black people, certain black people in a position of power. Let's just say Kamala Harris, and they have frustrations about that. And they'll say, oh man, this is a DEI hire. Let's just say like in America, in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people who had this frustration towards Karen Bass, right? And a lot of them say, oh, this is a DEI hire, right? So they feel like people of color, or black people specifically, but people of color, the AOCs. There's a lady in Minnesota that's a senator. I believe she's a Muslim woman. They feel like these people are just, they're taking over America, and America needs to come back to the way it was 50, 60 years ago. And what I'm saying is these little groups, they go into these echo chambers and they start coming up with rationalizations that don't even have to deal with facts, right? They'll take one thing and they'll say, oh, this is the truth because this happened right here. This anecdote, like anecdotes. They'll take little anecdotes and they'll say, oh, this happened over here or this happened over there, so this is true. Instead of actually looking at the facts. And I feel like these groups have bought into the American empire's lies, right? Like all of the lies these people have bought into, because with these conservative groups, a lot of them are being funded by dark money, right? It's a lot of dark money that's funneling all of this money towards these think tanks and these groups that are putting stuff out there to get people to be on the side of the establishment, right? Like of the empire. And it goes to show you that a lot of these people, the foundation that they were arguing, man, it was all over the place. You had some people that were like, screw the Constitution. We don't care about the Constitution. And this is something that was said by, I believe, what's his name, man? This guy really started blowing up. He was a white nationalist, and he really started blowing up. And then around the time Trump got elected, he kind of fell off a little bit because he got into it with the Breitbart guy. I forget what his name is. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the radicalization of a lot of these fringe groups that are online, this stuff has already gotten us to the point to where, yeah, man, we're pretty much at the stage where we're about to repeat history with fascism. Because a lot of this stuff is like, this is the stuff that, you know, if you study history, this was the stuff. If you look at the Mussolini, you look at the stuff with Hitler. This is the stuff, man. This is the stuff that started off kind of like fringe or whatever. It started to gain power. It started to. So this stuff that I'm looking at, I'm like, man, it's only in due time. Now, I'm not making this video to fearmonger, but I'm just saying it's only within time, because you'll start to see this stuff. You'll hear about stuff like the Rahowa, or you'll hear stuff about these little these little incidents that happen throughout America, where you'll see somebody so radicalized by this, they'll just go into domestic acts of terror. But this stuff, man, this stuff really exists. And from what I understand, the guy who was like, yes, I am a fascist. Yes, this and this and this and this and that. And he was all proud and smiling and saying, oh, I go by a pseudonym online and my name is Connor. That guy got fired. And basically, he's looking for a GoFundMe. You can look this up. I believe this was on the Daily Beast. He's doing a GoFundMe. So I'm starting to see that some of these other groups are kind of headed down a similar lane. Believe it or not. Right? Like, you have to, I totally understand what's going on in the black community as far as a delineation, right? Where people want to say, hey, this is my nationality, this is my group, this is this and this, but it can kind of become a form of populism, right? Where you're kind of echoing the same sentiments, because if you watch that video, some of those sentiments are echoed within the black community, especially like the xenophobia, right? Where you got to think, man, Europe is huge. So they had their little wars within Europe, right? Where they feel like there are hierarchies. There are hierarchies to whiteness. So what I'm saying is, you have to be careful with the xenophobia that you see from some of these groups, because you start to sound like those people who got radicalized. Because ultimately, when you hear those people speak, what they're talking about is ultra nationalism, like an ethno, the creation of a pure ethno state, where we eventually we're going to have to get to the point where the purging starts happening, the ethnic cleansing starts happening, in order to make this a pure ethno state, where it's ultra nationalism, where they don't want to see any other groups, and they want to be the center. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about any of this other stuff. They want a white ethno state, right? And eventually it becomes that, because we have to get from the part of where we're just talking about this stuff to where we actually have to act upon this. And I believe there's a gentleman online. He is from China. He is, I believe, a high school teacher. And everything this guy says, it pretty much came out to be the truth. He talks about game theory. Some of the most phenomenal stuff about politics. This guy talks about. He predicts it. And it comes to pass. It's like, wow, this dude predicted. He might be off maybe one or two things, but that's eventually where America, I believe, is headed within the next, I don't know how many years. But we go from a part where it goes from online to the actual, where we actually have to do something. Oh, hold on. Where we actually have to do something. Something has to be done about this. This is a problem that needs a resolution. So I say to you, there's nothing wrong with some of these groups. Like, I'm not going to say, Because I don't want that small. I don't want people always, But be careful with the xenophobia, because I believe it went from one thing to now it's starting to become like those reactionary groups that you see online, where they want to create these echo chambers where they're the center and everybody else is inferior to them. Or you guys get what I'm trying to say. But you got to be careful with that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I think he did a great job, but in due time, it's going to go from action things happening online into people being radicalized. And we've seen this happen internationally. I believe there was somebody so radicalized, he was, he committed a act of terror, because he was so radicalized by some of the stuff that he saw online. So you got to be careful with that stuff. Think about the foundation of the argument, because without a foundation, somebody can easily take apart your argument. And with that being said, I'm out. Peace.